Okay. Hello, everybody. What would a podcast or interview show be without some intro music? So for now, we'll call this the intro music. Let the show begin. Todd Katcher, welcome. Welcome back.
Welcome back. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been. It's been 3 years. We saw each other at NADA,
Yes.
and here we are, like a month or two later, and we're sitting down for the first time in a long time. So it's good to see you. Welcome.
It was a nice way to turn the corner and walk into you at NADA
Yeah,
and just
right.
see you and be like, you see a lot of people at NADA and oftentimes your brain gets boggled, right? And you're like, where do I know them from? What's their name? Do I even like this person? What interactions have I had with them? Are they a dealer? Are they a customer? Are they a vendor? And when I saw you, I'm like, hey, Chris. And it's like, that's when it's like there's a little bit more connection than just like knowing somebody from the NADA or the conferences.
I agree, and I hate to say this, but as the years have passed, sometimes my memory is not as sharp, right? And I've had this happen a couple times at NADA where you run into somebody and they're like, "Hey, Chris, how's it going? You remember this specific thing?" And I'm on the back foot sometimes, going, "Oh shit." Oh yeah, right.
It clicks.
And it clicks, but you feel bad when that happens. But that does not happen when we see each other, because I can remember years of walking around whatever conference it would be. There you would be standing in front of your booth for Digital Dealership Systems, correct?
Right.
I want to make sure I got the name right. So we're gonna get into all that, but I want to jump right into where we were before we started here. Okay, so it seems to me that you are a self-proclaimed perfectionist. Is this correct?
I would say it's that way, but not to a fault. I really try to balance out that my idea of what perfect is and what someone else's is there's a difference, and that's okay. So as a manager, our team now, 12, 15 people across the country, across the world, and interacting with dealers, and ultimately everyone's going to do things differently.
Right.
And the criteria that I hold myself to, or the products that we put out in the marketplace, or the website to, there's multiple ways of doing that may not be my way. So my way is not perfect. It's just that I have a way of doing things that is my standard. And what I've learned really recently, more than anything else, because I used to be like, if you don't do it my way, then you're doing it wrong. And I can't manage like that. So over time, as we've grown the company and I've matured and spent a lot of time on my own self-work, is really understanding I have my own criteria of what I accept in life. And what I accept in my own life, it may not be the way someone else lives, and I can't force mine on theirs. But how they fit in my life or in my business is relevant to how that mixes together, right?
Right.
So I don't say that I'm a perfectionist in a bad way, because you're a perfectionist in your own little world too. And the people around you and in this podcast studio, or that we interact with, or the dealers that we interact with, or the other people, how they live is perfect for them. And what's acceptable to someone else doesn't necessarily mean that I need to push my own on them. I have my criteria, and who I want closest in my life is going to have similar ideas, but the way they may do things may educate me. So it's not like, I feel that people who say that perfection is like a definition, I don't really look at it that way. I have a criteria that I want to live up to, and I'm constantly trying to get there. It's a mission. It's a journey. So I don't look at anyone else any differently, or say that they need to go ahead and be at my so-called level, because they're at their own level, and there's nothing wrong with that either. I think the problem with perfectionism is when you try to push it down on everyone else and have that expectation of everyone else, but they all have their own lives. They all have their own history. They all have their own birth sequence, like where they came from. And so what works for them, they may be happy. Some of the happiest people in the world have nothing that we would call valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And if our goal ultimately is happiness and joy, then my perfection and their perfection is going to be different. And so on a deeper level, I mean, that's really how I look at it. So when I'm creating stuff, content, or we're creating like our website redo, or we're creating products, or we're creating software, whatever that is, I have a vision, but I also have a team, and I'm not always right. So I try to achieve a certain level of what's acceptable, but I also don't go ahead and say this is the perfect way of doing it, because I don't know what the perfect way is. It's an education, it's a journey.
Okay. Wow. All right. Tons to, as people like to say these days, unpack. Let's change that language. There's lots of things to discuss in relationship to what you just said. So I noted, you know, when we were talking before we started, essentially what you're talking about is an extreme attention to detail, right? Some people would call that perfectionism, and I share that extreme attention to detail. I'm the same way. I will walk through this place or anywhere, and I'll stop and I'll spend 10 minutes just looking at something and saying, okay, that thing is off by a half an inch, right? And it might seem unnecessary to most people, which I understand, but for me, I go through the world with a sense of I like to have things done and in a certain way because I'm calmer that way.
Exactly.
Right? When things in my world are kind of askew and messy or not right, I just find that I can't really relax and be thoughtful and do what I need to do until that is done. And I agree with you that, that's my way of approaching the world. That's how I view and choose to interact with the world. That's what works for me. That's not how it works for everybody else. And I, too, like you at one point in time, was probably much more insistent on things being my way, right? I would imagine I'm still that way to a degree.
Sure.
But you recognize as you and you're a founder, right? And I'm a founder, and so you recognize that you can't be the founder forever, right? If you're going to operate that way, you have to start to get out of your own way, and you have to really recognize that there are people in your world that A, complement you, B, do it differently, and C, hopefully are a lot better than you at many of the things you once thought you were really good at, right?
That's true too.
That's what I want. I in this world of trying to grow a business, you want to be surrounded by people that share the vision and understand what it is, what your core values are and what you're trying to accomplish. And at the same time, the more guys like you and I can kind of get out of the way and architect and direct as opposed to insist is it's a better place to be, right?
It's a better work environment too, because you're not coming out and ruling what they used to say with an iron fist, right? It's my way or the highway type mentality.
Right.
It's more of a collective, and I may not have the best idea, but we're all going to share our ideas, and then I'm going to ultimately make the decision on which way to go. But it's a lot of times it's not I want to hear from everyone else before I give mine, because I don't want to influence them. So we'll have a meeting with like 3 or 4 people in our office about something on the website or something on our new software program. And I'll say, what do you think about this? And I'll have them do a demo or use it, and then come back to me and say, what was your experience? And we have different talent in the office, as every office does, right? So we have everyone from admins to programmers to support people to people in marketing, and they all have different brains, and they all have different lifestyles, and they all have different experiences into their current jobs. And the admin's going to give different input on the usability of something than a support person that's more technology oriented. And so that feedback, though, is really important, because who's your target market? Is your target market more the technology person or more the admin type person, or somewhere in between? So if you're creating something you're focused on usability, you want your admin to go through it because they don't have preconceived notions of how it should be.
Right.
So if you're trying to create something that's intuitive, then somebody who doesn't have a technology background, we always refer to like our parents. Like if we gave our parents the keys, right, would they be able to operate this system, right? And so is it easy enough for them to use? Is it logical? Is the pathway from start to
How
finish
many
there?
phone calls afterwards are you going to receive about how to use it?
Right. And so like if we create it for the tech person, that's a different skill set that's required, and the barrier of entry is much higher for someone to understand something. And even when you go to like a website, as you know, in our world, we go into lots of different websites. And when you look at your websites and you say, okay, how easy is this for someone to navigate? And how easy is it to someone they come to the website with an intention, right? Whether it's to learn about a product or to buy a car or whatever that may be, like even in our own use, how fast is it to go ahead and get to the end result of whatever they're trying to accomplish? And how much thought process, how many times do they want to call that helpline, right? To go ahead and solve that process. What tools can we give them to make that easier if they need help? Or can we make it so easy that they don't need help? I was just listening to a book from one of the guys that used to be the president of Tesla. It's called The Algorithm. And one of the things that Elon said to him a long time ago, they were making minimal amount of money through their online shopping experience. It was 64 steps to buy a car. He said, get it to under 10. Once they did, it took a long time, and they had to get engineering involved and all these different things. It's a book, so it's a long story. But the idea is that you get to the point, and it's like less than it took. Their sales increased considerably once they got it to less clicks and deleted all the steps that weren't required. Their sales skyrocketed just because people were getting out of the sales experience because there was too much friction. So that usability was important. They made it for the tech person, the person who had the time,
Right.
and they brought it down to simplify it down to, hey, now it's just 10 clicks to buy a car.
So before we get too far off to the races, let's use this as a moment to cycle back around to you and your company. So why don't you tell us a little bit? I mean, I know generally what you do, but
Sure.
there will be people that are watching that are going to be wondering, who is this Todd? What's he all about? So why don't you tell us a little bit about your company, or actually it sounds like maybe companies at this point in time.
Yeah. So there's a bunch, and I started programming. So I keep on coming up with new ideas to solve problems. So I've developed a couple on my own recently.
Okay.
So, but we'll focus on the main ones. So we met through Digital Dealership System,
Yes.
which is leaderboards and digital signs for the automotive industry. We've been in business for over 12 years. I keep on getting reminders on LinkedIn how long we've been in business for, but when it actually started to now is about 12 to 14 years. I don't know the exact date. And
You don't know the exact
No.
date that you started?
No,
Really?
I don't. At that time when I started, it was in Nashville. And I owned 3 bars at that time, and it was a side project that ventured off from an ad network that I had, where we had 100 screens in bars and restaurants, and I thought that was my goal, to go ahead and build that network. But that didn't work as well. But one of our customers at the bar wound up owning a dealership and goes, well, can you create this for us? And I said, well, what would you want it to do? I had no clue because I wasn't from that business. And so that's where the formative experience came from, to create Digital Dealership System. Over the years, our requirements have increased significantly. So about 5 years ago, we started to create our own software company. And then we've been using that internally across our 1,000+ systems in the industry, and 1,000 current media players installed, and we over time, more or less, plus or minus, that type of thing. And so we actually have developed our own software that we are now going out to market with, called Zoney, Zoney, which is a digital sign software program. And we made it as advanced as possible to meet the needs of every type of business in the marketplace, whether it's connected to a point of sale system for pricing structure, or whether it's connected to, we're in bidding now to do a stadium. So the idea of what's called IPTV, where you take a TV signal from all their cameras around and put that into the digital sign program as well. And we have over 150 apps that we built into the system, and we use that for Digital Dealership System as well. So we've extended the flexibility and offering of Digital Dealership System by creating our own software, so we now have more value for our current customers.
So to clarify a little bit, so the Digital Dealership System, which is how we met, is, for many years you were installing many video screens and walls in dealerships for any number of reasons. A lot of it was service lounge video, where you were able to give the dealership the ability to customize the video streams into the service department or into the service waiting areas. We were talking earlier about the leaderboard stuff, which gives you and dealers the opportunity to display performance metrics and those types of things in front of frontline workers, so that they're more dialed into it's like a score. I mean, it's a scoreboard, essentially.
Correct. Digital scoreboard.
It's a performance scoreboard for sales associates, for service advisors, techs, everybody, to see, hey, how are we actually doing, right?
Right.
Which is really cool. So I want to just touch on that real quick,
Sure.
because that was, that seems like a newer,
Mhm.
and of course it's been 3 years since we've had a long conversation, but I don't remember that as much from our last dialogue. How are most dealerships utilizing that?
Yeah. So we had the leaderboard for about 10 years, but about 5 or 6 years ago, we completely revamped it and rebranded and created two different divisions of our company. So we have digital signs, which are customer facing solutions based on the customer journey in the service drive, in the lounge, in the showroom. And that provides an in-store marketing platform for car dealers to go ahead and communicate their brand awareness, their service status, their marketing messaging to customers directly. So just like they spend money on advertising to drive traffic into the dealership, this is once they're in the dealership, what type of messaging do you want to create a retention or to boost CSI, boost sales, B-backs, that type of thing, create a unique experience inside the dealership. The second division is our leaderboards. We branded it under Pulse, which Pulse stands for something, but we kind of got rid of that acronym as far as what it actually stood for. But Pulse is the idea of our leaderboards, and we have sales, BDC, and fixed ops leaderboards, and they've been hugely successful. So we've pivoted our marketing for the company based on the requirements that dealers have had because they gravitate more towards those products, and there's nothing out there like it. Dealerships have tons of reporting tools. They have the ability to go ahead and at their DMS or CRM or third-party reporting tools that cost a huge amount of money, $2,500 to $3,000 a month for these reporting tools to let them analyze their business. But what's missing is that middleware, if you will, who, like you said, communicates with your frontline workers. A report is a snapshot of past experience. So you hire an ad agency and they have some sort of creative or some sort of what would you call it? Like, what's your plan that you have?
Campaign, a strategy.
A campaign or a strategy, yeah. And you implement that, and then you evaluate it, right? And so you use a report for that to make decisions based on past experience. This went from this date to this date. How did we do during that time? Did we get an ROI for that spend? Or what was the ROI from that spend? That doesn't... your frontline workers, your advisors, your technicians, your salespeople, your sales managers, they don't care. What they want to know about, how can I increase my sales to go ahead and make more money, because they're not living paycheck to paycheck, but they look forward to their paychecks because that's where they receive the rewards of their efforts. And so our digital leaderboards focus specifically on them with text messages when a deal is done, a virtual kick in the butt. They go ahead and they always know where they stand on the KPIs that are important to them, their goals that you set for them, whether that's hours or efficiency or effective labor rate on the fixed side, or you look at your performance goals based on what you set, units or gross or trades that you do on the variable side. And then for BDC, we're tracking directly from the CRM the basic stats, which are going to be your calls, text, emails, how many appointments you're setting. All that can be tracked within our system in a visual way. So a report is great on the small desktop for managers,
right?
But your frontline workers, they care about their performance and they care about the motivation from their colleagues.
So where are these typically displayed?
In a variety of places. The majority of times, variable is going to be in a sales tower somewhere,
Sure,
but sometimes in a break room.
Okay. So it's not out on the floor where customers see it, right? It's more geared specifically towards...
They could pick and choose the leaderboards from our platform on what shows where. We do have some dealers based on the layout of their store that there are some stores that have sales manager towers out on the sales floor, and they'll put our system on there, but they will choose what KPI leaderboards show up there. Like, they know people walking in know they sell cars, right? So showing units is not a bad thing. Showing your goals on units isn't a bad thing, or your trends, or your how many deals you did today is not a bad thing on the sales floor. You wouldn't want to show gross on the sales floor,
sure,
right? So you could pick and choose what's actually there. Or like one of our reports shows average gross per deal, right? You would, who's on top of the list has the highest average. You're like, I don't want to go to that guy. He's going to screw me over, right? He's going to try to make the most amount of money. So, or the person who does the most money in trades, maybe not the right guy to go to. But on fixed, it's been different. Sometimes it's in the shop, sometimes it's in a break room, but we also give the staff access if the dealer wants to give them access, I should say, to that way they could always look at it on their mobile phone or on their desktop computer.
Right. But I mean, it's not extremely customer facing, a lot of this
No.
performance oriented
Correct.
information. Now, it's also, I'm curious to get the feedback in what stores tell you about, does it end up being a good motivator for the staff, right? Because, if you're, there's going to be people on the top of the leaderboard. There's going to be people on the bottom of the leaderboard, right? What's the feedback from the stores on how this works as a potential, motivator?
Yeah, it's a huge motivator because, most times the way that most dealers do it with a dry erase board is whoever was top before the previous month is now top again, or they leave it the same order forever and they just try to erase a dry erase board.
Squares and X's.
Yeah. And that's been the same way since the 70s. So, coming into the digital age, even if you just had that one leaderboard there, it would increase the likelihood of success because now you have a little competition internally. Because let's say the top 3 people might change position as the month goes on, right? So that's going to increase a little bit of competition. Plus, anytime a sale is done, they get a text message. They're like, oh, Joe got a sale and I'm sitting out here smoking on a smoke break. Like all the people sitting outside, I drive by like 3 or 4 dealerships on the way to work. And it's like, it's 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it is, and there's people outside smoking. Imagine if you're outside taking a break and you're getting a text message, someone just closed a deal, might change the culture a little bit in the store.
Right.
And we have some big stores that utilize our systems and have integrated culture into it as well, because whenever that sale happens, whenever it's delivered, a name pops up on the screen with congratulations to that person, customized for each car that they sell. In addition, everybody gets a text message. Everybody then gathers around the sales tower, congratulates that person, but then they wait for a loop of all the leaderboards because each leaderboard has a different person on top, depending on what you're tracking. Just because you sold the most amount of units may not be that you're the top person in your goal, because your goal may be that much higher.
Right.
So somebody who's new may be top on the goal leaderboard because if they're new, maybe their goal is 10 per month, whereas somebody who's more seasoned may be 20 or 25 per month. So they may be at different levels on each individual leaderboard looking at individual KPIs. So that provides motivation for the people that may not be the top person. Remember the difference between leaderboards and reports. Leaderboards are going to be variable for every different leaderboard is going to have a different order based on whatever you're tracking, whether that's trades or whether we even have coaching modules built into the system that say who's the lower performers, who hasn't sold a car in 3, 5, or 7 days. And then we could coach them up. It costs about $10,000 according to Hierology, but to hire a new person. So if you could coach up the people, make your sales managers aware of people that are below their goals, then you could go ahead and coach them up. And if you look at leaderboards focus on the top people,
right,
not the bottom people. And the bottom people are the ones that need your coaching.
So I'm curious because there's again a lot of information in there to talk about.
Sure.
Coming from the bar and restaurant world and sort of accidentally ending up in retail automotive, and then being one thing to retail automotive for a period of time, meaning more a provider of customer-facing marketing, right, in the dealership, to now going into more of this, which seems to be more where you're focused, right, in terms of these performance leaderboards. You've obviously, in your experience in working with dealerships, had to learn a lot about the retail automotive space. And now you've gone from presenting a marketing solution, right, to a performance solution. It's a very interesting transition. So in terms of how you deal and interact with your dealership clients, how do they see you? Who are you to them? Are you a guy that sells them video screens that they are able to run video on, or are you now more than that, somebody who's helping them achieve performance in the dealership?
So originally, when you look at the digital sign aspect of things, every dealer says that they care about the customer experience, but very few dealers actually invest in the customer experience. I actually had a fixed ops director of a very large auto group say they get coffee and air conditioning, and that's what customers get. the service manager who
It's true.
the service manager said, hey, I see a lot of value in adding service status and keeping them informed and using it as a marketing platform, and got the concept right. And when they come in the drive, they should see their name up on the board, like at the airport, and we should be able to advertise to them with marketing and pricing and all this stuff. And he went to his director, and that was the response that he got. And that's the guy who's over 15 stores. So that concept trickles down.
So the service director of 15 stores was the one who said they get air conditioning and coffee?
And that's all they get.
Nice.
So, but if you went ahead and asked that person, do you care about the customer experience? He would say yes, because they're not going to say no. But they don't invest in it. When you look at their staff, what we've learned is that dealers will often go ahead and not invest in their actual staff, but in the operations of their store. They spend a lot of money in reporting tools, in back-end operations. And so those people that are more on the cutting edge of that area see the middleware of a leaderboard, and then they choose whether or not to invest in it, because we're a fraction of the cost. So I had a dealer yesterday who was like, I thought this would be $1,500 a month, and it's $500 a month. But their perception is there based on the presentation and all that we do for them. Mm-hmm. So the concept is, hey, we're over-delivering for what the value is in that area, but it's a good position for us to be in financially based on where the value is for the customer. Where dealers don't have a problem with money. They have a problem with where to spend the money. So when they look at all the different things that are out there in the marketplace, we just came back from NADA. There's lots of places to spend money. The problem is not if they have the money, it's their choice of where to spend it. So that one dealer in that example, which is a negative example, but it's a real world example.
Right.
They wouldn't invest in a $99 service menu, but they may invest in a $4.99 fixed ops leaderboard, because they see that the fixed ops leaderboard increases sales through motivation and through live tracking that they can't get through their CRM or DMS. And then that goes ahead and pads their pocket as well, so it becomes more self-serving as well.
Okay, but still, I'm so curious. When the dealer is speaking to you,
Sure.
Who do they think they're speaking to, and what do they want to know? Or are you still a guy that has a product that they see as useful? And the reason I'm asking that is because you're talking a lot more about performance than you are about the actual product that you offer, right?
Yeah.
So how have they grown to see that in you?
I think our product line and the way we present our product is that people are coming to us for that leaderboard aspect. Mm-hmm. During my presentation, though, I always say, I'm not a consultant, but they do ask those types of questions.
Right.
How do we set our goals? Amazingly enough, where do we put this thing? I love it. We've always had a dry erase board, or we use glass as a dry erase board. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, they really they see me more as we're delivering a benefit to them that they need. Mm-hmm. They feel more value in what we provide now versus in the customer experience. A lot of dealers, I used to work for a guy a long time ago in the gym business. He used to say, live by the door, die by the door. And a lot of dealers do that. They do a lot of advertising outside. And then once it comes in, they're like, we got this. So they don't need help there. They rely on their staff to sell. And the way the facility looks is not overly important to them when it comes to digital signs and the services we offer. That person coming to the drive is going to buy whatever services my guys recommend. And the ability to upsell, they don't see the value in spending $99 a month for that. Whereas they see the value in the leaderboard. And that's really where the shift is. So a lot of the conversations now have been we get more inquiries from general managers than we ever had before. Whereas before on the digital sign side, it used to be like internet managers. Nothing wrong with that position in the dealership.
Right.
But it's not a priority for the ownership. It's more of a, hey, this makes sense from that internet director, but then that person has to go sell it to the GM, and the GM's like, why would I spend $99 for this? They're already here.
So you use the word customer experience a lot, right? Through that last segment. And do you think dealerships really care about the customer experience?
Like I said, I think they say they do, but they're not willing to invest in it. There's a difference. If you say you like something, we're both health people, conscious, and how many people say, I realize that this isn't healthy for me, but I do it because of other reasons. It's not their priority, right?
Mm-hmm.
The person that goes to McDonald's is not eating McDonald's because they think it's healthy. It's not even on their register. They're just hungry, and it's convenient. Convenient is higher up their line than than the health, right? Dealers, it's not a top priority to invest in that. But if you did invest in it, then they would reap the benefits. Same way as someone with health and nutrition. If they invested in it, you could actually make more nutritious food at home in less time if you prepared a little bit. But most people don't do that. A lot of people don't do that, right? So the opportunity is that your question, do they care about the customer experience? That's different to me than if you care about something or do you invest in it.
So what should they, if they truly care about the customer experience, from your perspective, what would be the things that they would invest time and money in to achieve a better customer experience?
I think you'd have to put yourself in the customer's shoes. Be a customer. Walk in the store like a customer and say, what makes this store different than any other store that I've been in? Remember, car dealerships are selling a commodity. We're in South Florida. If you want to buy a Ford or you want to buy a Toyota or you want to buy a Honda, there's 5 different ones in the local area that you could go to, dealerships, and they all sell the same vehicle. So at the end of the day, that Honda Accord is the same no matter which dealership you buy it from. And that's just in this immediate area, like within maybe an hour drive in each individual areas, maybe less. But the idea is that you could roll off the lot in the same vehicle. What makes that in-store experience unique that makes that person want to come back or refer? And that's really where I believe digital signs matter. Let's go ahead and assume that every shop is clean, every service drive is clean, every staff member is professional. That makes it very even, right? All the brands have a brand standard. So let's assume they're all in the same brand standard, right? So we're not comparing mom and pop stores that are independent.
Yeah, no, you're
There's
talking
franchises.
5 Honda stores that are all well run and all have the same stuff.
And they all hire the best staff. They all train them the best they can. They all have uniforms. They all have their criteria, right? How do you separate one from the other? The only way of doing it is create an in-store experience, whether that's through digital signs or some other way of doing it. And digital signs, when you go through the service drive, you're going to have service menus, service status boards, dare to compare boards. You're going to welcome people with their name. You're going to go ahead and greet them appropriately, and you're going to give them a transparent pricing experience. We've actually had some dealers remove our service menus because every customer pays a little bit differently, and that's how they're trained. But if you have transparent pricing, those people feel more comfortable about doing business with you, and then they'll do business with you again.
Okay, so I agree, and I would say that what you're talking about is second important.
Okay.
In the line of importance of this. And it's the trap that everybody falls into in business, which is there is a tool or a technology or a thing that is going to create the thing, right? Okay. That's going to create the experience. So what you're talking about, I think, is important because when you go, you've been in enough dealerships at this point in time to know you can feel it immediately. You walk into a store and you're like, oh yeah, they're doing business here. Or you walk into a store and you go, no, they're not doing business here.
Right.
You can feel it when you walk into the store. And so there's always an energy and a vibe. So a lot of the things that you're talking about contribute to that, right? Is there music on?
Right.
Are the video boards up and running? Does it feel exciting to be in there? You mentioned a dealer talking about, like Las Vegas, right?
Right.
Well, there is an energy and an excitement that you feel in Las Vegas or other people where there's a lot of stuff going on, right?
Sure.
That is part of the retail experience. I still believe, though, that so many businesses, including ours, we all fail at this at time to time, forget the human component, which is, not only did you hire the right people, how do you treat them? How do you interact with them?
Sure.
How do you deal with each other in a stressful, performance-oriented environment that still results in people being pleasant to the customer, right? Because we've all been to the amazing wow place where the people were shit.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, all the wow rarely overcomes the shitty experience that you had with the person that you were interacting with.
Yeah.
And so, we talk a lot about brand
Mm-hmm.
and what does your brand mean?
Sure.
And dealers and businesses and guys and women like us, men and women who own businesses, better way to say it, we all think that our brand is the story that we tell about ourselves, right? But really the brand is it's the experience
Mm-hmm.
of interacting with us and
Mhm.
doing business with
Sure.
us. And so I think that when we're talking about any business, we have all these great tools and technology, and too often, you see it as well too, dealers are too reliant on wanting to find, well, what's the next thing? Maybe I should change my website.
Right.
Or I put the sign in, I've got the leaderboard. Why are we not performing better? Well,
Right.
it's because it still comes down to how are you running your store, and
Yeah.
how are you treating your team, and how are they treating the customer?
Sure.
And is it an enjoyable place to be?
Yeah, and I wanted to normalize that because we want, like, I look at it beyond that, right? So like my first thing that I think of is in the customer experience is how do you make your store different, assuming that you have the best people, you have the best culture,
Right.
because as much as when we go visit a dealership, we're there for a very limited amount of time in the grand scheme of time.
Right.
So our observation is, how can we improve on what you're currently doing? And we're not going in there as a consultant for their entire dealership. We're going in there to provide customer experience through that journey to maybe close the gap a little bit. So yeah, that guy, he wasn't the nicest guy, but they had these signs up there and they let me know when my vehicle was ready. And I'm going to go back there because of that, because the other guy the other dealership, they didn't have good people either.
Right.
So let's raise the bar and just say that they hire the best people, they train them that they have the
Right.
best culture, and we know that's going to fluctuate. So if we take all that out, and they have the brand standards, and they have inventory, and I know there's a lot of ands in there, but let's go ahead and just focus on, like, okay, so is the dealership that's not clean, let's say they have, let's just get that, we're not talking about those, right? Like every dealership has their little nuances.
No, we're talking
right?
about a clean slate,
Yeah, exactly.
9 dealerships that are all
And I
up,
think as
right.
you look through the customer journey, and you look at, okay, start 100% of your customers come through the service drive. How are you communicating them your brand position, as you said?
Mm-hmm.
How are you communicating them transparent pricing? How are you welcoming them in the store? Of course, your staff is there with a smile, greets them when they come out of the door. Thank you, Mr. Cooper, for coming in today. Whatever, we're ready for you, making them feel welcome. We assume they're all doing that. So how do we go above and beyond that?
Right.
And we're not trying to fill gaps with digital signs. We're trying to elevate how good they already are. And so how do you increase that experience? And then in the lounge, why are you showing your competitors' commercials in the lounge? Why are you showing negative news, wars, protests, whatever may be on TV? Like there is an actual dealership who has a glass wall in between two sections, and one has CNN and one has Fox on, and they have a glass wall in between. A true story. And they go ahead and they have different people sit in different rooms. I said, why are you segregating like that? But they have to see the need for something like that. So with our systems, family-friendly pre-screened content mixed with the service status enhances that customer experience, and you're dealing with a customer that's less aggressive, let's say, less influenced by the news and sports and things like that. And then you get the showroom experience. Remember, most dealerships have a vanilla box. Whatever the manufacturer's minimum requirements are for the way the showroom looks, every Honda store looks very similar. How do you make your store look different? And that's the digital sign aspect of it, aside from the leaderboard aspect of it.
Todd,
yes.
Why do you do this?
Do this as far as digital signs and leaderboards?
Your business. Why do you do this?
I have a passion for it, for sure.
Where does the passion lie?
I think in that what we talked about before we went on air, a little bit of that trying to fix things. I think I see digital signs is not a sexy business, and it's not a business that would be a business that's going to go ahead and have like a DMS where they're spending $20,000 to $50,000 per month for your service. So financially, it's not in the same realm.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we can make an impact. Digital signs and leaderboards make an impact into every single dealership that buys into the concept. The challenge is getting over that hump. So take it out of digital signs and leaderboards for a second. I was in personal training, and I was part of gyms for a long time. And I believe that someone who has a personal trainer, the right trainer, right, would go ahead and get more benefits than on their own. That's why a lot of people work out with partners, right, to push them a little bit more or to make them show up when they don't want to show up, that type of thing. There's a human aspect too, as well as the physical aspect to that. So, but getting someone over the hump to invest in that, in their own health, beyond just signing up for the gym membership to now buy training is a leap that has super benefits. I enjoyed that role, but the challenge there is convincing somebody to make that leap. But once they do, they don't go back. So same things with digital signs. That one dealer that you were referring to that wanted their dealership to look like there's screens everywhere, their sales went up 30%. But there are other dealerships that say, no, I don't want to invest in that. But in any dealership, like a big customer might be $1,000 a month. You could do a full store for under $500 a month. It's not a big expense. And then what's your ROI? $500 for a dealership, first of all, is a rounding error in their revenue. But on a $500 investment, if you go ahead and sell one extra car a month or sell 10 extra ROs a month, whatever that number is, it's going to pay for itself tenfold at least.
But you're answering the question, and then you're giving me a lot of technical information.
I know.
I want to get away from the technical. Enough of that.
Okay.
Essentially, what you are telling me is that you derive a sense of achievement and satisfaction from helping people improve some aspect of their life.
True.
Is that correct?
Yep, that's very good. Yes.
Okay, good. Let's hone in on that.
Sure.
Why? Where did that come from for you?
I don't know if I've ever really thought about where that came from. It's just the way that I've always been. I mean, even going back to high school, I was part of like leadership groups and part of the type of community that was tied into culture building. And even in college, I was part of an association that was to betterment the student body. We called it at Ohio State, or the Ohio State University. We called it RAC, which was the Residence Hall Association Community. That's probably wrong, but it was called RAC. But the idea was like I was president. We brought in things to the community, to the residents that lived in the halls, to go ahead and provide structure for them. And each hall would have people that they would come and vent about things that they would want to change. And then we would try to push that through the Ohio State bureaucracy. And I think that's always been my pattern, is trying to improve. Even when we're talking about software, it's like some things are just logical to me that some people may accept. And I'm like, well, it should be like this. And then they're like, oh, yeah, that's better that way. And it's like tinkering little things, little levers of life to go ahead and make it just a little bit better. But the challenge that I have is that not everybody's open to that. So I can't force that on someone else. So I could only live my own life that way. And then I could model for others in such a way. So, and that's kind of what I try to do. Is like and I hear that back from staff, like, hey, you taught me this or you taught me that. And that's really rewarding for me as well.
I'm digesting that for a moment because I'm trying to lead into the nugget there. Now, let's like fast forward down time, right? Like, where does this lead for you? Right? You've got a company that through technology and equipment and gear and what have you helps you do that, right? And obviously it provides a living for you and the people that are in your company. What is it that you would like to achieve with this over the next period of time? How do you see yourself transitioning all of these pieces as you move forward in time?
I think I really don't plan too far in advance because I believe I don't have control over that. So I control today, I control my attitude, I control how I react to things that happen during the day. And I've worked really hard on that. But and my word choice, and I've worked very hard on that. And I'll go ahead and dig myself for poor word choices because communication is extremely important to me. But communication, as I've learned, is two-way street. I could say whatever I want, but how somebody hears me is as important to the words that I say, right? So my word choice is extremely important because I want to be able to communicate, and you have to communicate or learn to communicate differently to different people. and be aware of their capacity at that given time on how you can communicate to them. You could push different people at different time. So I don't really look when you say like, where does this go? Right now, I'm trying to go ahead and focus on the new month and the sales and finishing the next part of the development for the Zoni software program. I would love Digital Dealership System to be part of a larger company that can create a bigger impact in a larger space. Meaning, there are some very large companies in automotive with hundreds of employees or thousands of employees. If we were part of that, we would have a bigger impact as Digital Dealership System.
Part of that meaning being like an acquisition?
Or partner or a deep partnership. I think there has to be, we've had those conversations already.
Right.
But it's being part of something that puts fuel on the fire, right? To go ahead and impact more. To like, how can one person have an impact or one small company have an impact on their own? They have to touch more people. Or the accelerator for that is to be part of a larger organization that has those relationships already that we could then connect to and have a larger impact in the digital leaderboards and the signs, right? So, and ultimately to have a bigger impact in their stores to increase revenue, increase retention, increase, all
right,
that
but
stuff.
so fundamentally you're talking about, expanding your footprint, whether it would be through an acquisition or a meaningful partnership with a company that could help get you deeper distribution into more stores across the country.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say that happens. 5 years from now, that has happened, and your software is working the way that you want it to be. Then what? Haven't thought that far forward yet?
I when I was younger, I created my first business plan in high school, and I have that challenge with like, how far ahead do you project? And you realize that none of that ever happens. There's too many other variables involved. So whether it's business or whether it's personal, I really don't like projecting too far ahead because there's too many variables that are out of my control. And sometimes you just got to let that roll out. And when that presents itself, you make those decisions at that time. So I've really done a good job on the business side of things of not projecting too many steps forward. So I really don't even think a year in ahead. I really think I plan quarterly, but it's a very loose plan. It's not detailed intentionally. And there are some people that flow more readily that way, and some people that need like I'm very regimented with my day or my week. I plan like what happens each day, like coming to see you today. There are certain things that I had to plan and organize in order to do this today, and change certain things in my schedule to accommodate something that I wanted to do. But then I also look at, okay, well, I don't plan too far in advance. Last year on a personal level, I said, I'm going to go ahead and plan my vacations in January, because if I wait to the week before, I'm going to have a reason not to go.
Right.
So I went ahead and planned 5 vacations last year. Now, some of them were just weekends. Some of them were around business. But the idea was like, I'm going to go someplace for business and I'm going to stay an extra 2 or 3 days afterwards. And what am I going to do? So I planned, booked everything. Like everything was done, including a cruise. Like I planned it out ahead of time. And trips to Scottsdale, trips to Europe, like things that I just did. I had everything booked in January, February. So, but you can't do that with business because there's too many other variables involved. So I don't really plan that far in advance. So when you say, hey, so if we were part of, getting back to your question, if we were part of a bigger organization, I would keep doing what I'm doing, but just at a larger scale. I would be surrounded with more executive type people to support what I'm trying to do at a larger scale. We're a very flat company as it is now. Most businesses are. Open door policy. Sometimes it's like a rotating door. There's literally someone waiting outside my office to come in to run something by me. And they're my priority because our customers are our priority. So if they're coming to see me, it's because there's something about a customer or something that's customer facing. So in general, I really want to focus on taking care of those situations. Now, I also want to understand that if we were part of a larger organization, I wouldn't necessarily have those touch points as much. I would be able to make more focus on what I enjoy, which is the product development and the marketing initiative and the macro type stuff. I enjoy just sitting and making sales calls all day long. A lot of times business pulls me away from doing that. So I can't focus on that thing. So I create blocks in my day.
Mm-hmm.
If I look 5 years forward, or if we are part of a larger company, my role would change. And I would be surrounded by a larger support team that then I could make better. So I could work with the salespeople on the things to say, on the process based on my experience. I could make everyone around me better, which I would enjoy.
So I know you say you don't look into the future, but I'm going to ask you another question
Okay.
about the future.
Sure.
How long do you see yourself doing this?
I don't have a timeline.
No.
No, I think that we've been approached by companies, and I've always said, what is your post-acquisition strategy? And we've turned down people. It's a lot. I mean, fairly enough, a lot of money, because their post-acquisition wasn't in line with what mine was.
Right.
How are you going to help us? Or like, what is your, like, we say yes, money changes hands. What is the next step? And if they don't have the right answer, then we kind of cut it off. If they don't want me involved, that's an easier solution, right? Here's your money and just walk away. But they've all asked me to be involved. So if I'm going to be involved, there has to be some sort of you need to help, because we're growing a lot. So we sign up new dealers. We grow year over year. The company's growing as it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
So for someone to come in, what are you going to do post-acquisition better? So when you look at a big company, without naming them, like DMS or CRM companies, big companies that are out there that we've spoken to, you already know that they already have a sales team of 100, 200, 300 people. They're going to bring you in and 10X you within the first. My friend sold to a big company, and they 10X'd his company in the first 90 days. They've already called all of their big customers about this product and said, would you be interested? And within the 90 days, they 10X'd his company. I mean, just think about that.
Right.
So when you look at those big companies, the challenge is we're a blip in their radar. We're a rounding error to $1 billion company, right? So
Now,
it's
how
like, it
would
has
you?
to be
I'm always curious because there are, from my perspective, there's been a lot of really interesting companies in our space that have been acquired,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then everything that was interesting about their company, their thing, whatever they did, just.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard about a couple of those the other day. Yeah, actually, specifically.
It sounds to me that you are taking a very thoughtful approach to saying, yeah, I don't really want that to happen, or if it does, I need it to happen on certain terms. So you're turning some opportunities away that could lead to that, which I respect that. I think I find it sad sometimes to see people who have spent so much time developing something that's
Mm-hmm.
really great, and it's like, okay, I guess it is exciting to get acquired and get a nice check and what have you, but then it just becomes diluted into the next big thing, and then it's like it's gone, and it just becomes a logo on a sheet of paper.
Yep, or a mark on a resume.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with a dealer the other day who said, "Oh, I used to use that program, and then it was acquired by XYZ company, and then I canceled because it just wasn't. It didn't work the same.
Yeah.
I couldn't get support. I couldn't, like all these things that they used to get as with a smaller company was not translated now to the bigger company. But I do know the owner of that bigger company. He's like, yeah, it's a shit show. He's like, I left. He's like, I had a 2-year buyout afterwards, and I left. And ever since the acquisition happened and they folded us into their mix, customer support's gone down. The product doesn't work as reliable because the people that are making decisions aren't actually touching the system. So, I mean, I heard, I'm reading this book, I think I mentioned earlier, a guy who used to run Tesla. And he said, and this is what, now he's he's on Lululemon's board and he's on GM's board and whatever the story is. And he said, he had his people go to try to buy a Tesla. Now he has people who go to Lululemon, try to buy their clothes and see what that experience is. Most of these people that are running these big conglomerates in the automotive space have been so far removed from the automotive experience or from the customer experience that they're not able to make quality decisions based on that experience. They're running a business, but they're not there in the actual weeds walking through dealers like I've done and like you've done and like most founders have done.
I'm thinking, just thinking it's like a shift gears. Again, and it's just sort of this point thing, and we talk about it a lot, at the, the agency, the shop, what we'll call ourselves. As things get bigger, they just lose touch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's inevitable. And I'm just thinking recently, there was that whole, over the last 2 months, there's been a lot of content online really ripping on the CEO of McDonald's. Have you seen this
I
video?
saw that. Yeah.
Where he's like, I've got the product here, and I don't even know how to hold this product. It's a burger product, right? And he takes a bite. I mean, it literally looked like he was, afraid to let his lips touch the thing, right?
Yeah.
Now, whether they did, some people thought they did that intentionally just to get a bunch of people fired up or not. Who knows? It's not a good look, but it's so representative of how, as companies get larger and larger and larger, not only do they lose touch with their product, with the people, with the experience, with the customer, it's just like it just gets so far away from the human element. And that's going to be the focus of my business for as long as I can possibly make it, which is find a way to continue to connect to the human element in whatever it is that we do. I spoke to an old friend of mine who's running a store just in the last couple of days, and he was asking me, hey, I'm thinking about changing my website, and I'm thinking about doing this, and I got this, this company's presenting, and of course we've worked with everybody, so I know them all, and I said, dude, first off, how certain are you that changing your website is going to make any difference in your business at all?
Right.
Well, this one says that, and that one says this. Okay, great. We've all heard that a million times before. So are you willing to go through 90 days of ass ache, right, in hopes that this is going to make a big difference in your business? Or might you be better off spending a little bit more time with your people
in the business,
working hand in hand? Go out, greet some customers, go look and see that make sure your bathrooms are clean. Like those types of things are going to have such a bigger impact. And we've been doing this such a long time. And I'm going to kind of use this as a little bit of a summary because you're offering great solutions to dealers. And I still want to make sure that we're encouraging dealers and business owners to be personally involved in what it is that you're doing, right? With your people, with your customers, right? We all think there's no time for that. Right? Like we all go, oh man, I've got so much shit I got to do. And, go slow to go fast. Slow down.
Yeah.
Like 15 minutes isn't that much time.
No.
And that's sometimes all it takes. So are you going to go through all this struggle to change one thing that might not make that much of a difference, right? And so I applaud you because you're growing your business. You have been growing your business. You're thoughtful. You're passionate about what you do. And at the same time, you know that you could grow and you'd like to see that happen. And at the same time, you want to make it happen on the right. If that opportunity presents itself to you.
Yeah, we don't need anything. We're growing, so we're in a good position. If you're not in a place of need, you have a lot more flexibility in the decisions that you make. So, I've come to terms with that the last couple of years as we've grown exponentially, and my lifestyle has changed and everything has changed, just because the business continues to grow. I started this business when I owned the bars in Nashville, and when I moved here to South Florida, I didn't have anything. I would build the media players on my floor in an extra bedroom in an apartment. And I actually had customers complain that they said they opened up the system and there was dog hair inside from my dog. I had 10 TVs on a wall in my extra bedroom that I would program while sitting on the floor. I would program the computers and then send off the media players myself to go ahead and send them out. Like we didn't start this with like $10 million in the bank, so like, it's like, I've gone to over 600 dealerships. I've walked in them and I have a weird memory of what dealerships look like. So it is a passion because I wouldn't remember these things if I wasn't passionate about it. I'm passionate about fitness and I remember weird things about that. It's like, there's just certain things that it sticks a little bit better. So, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, it's been good catching up with you again, Todd. I appreciate seeing you.
I appreciate it.
And I thank you for sharing your story about your business with me, with us, all of us here in the room. And whoever it is that may choose to watch, right? So I thank you, man. I wish you the very best of luck.
Oh, thank you.
Look
It's good
forward
seeing you
you
again
as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Todd.